Hello, everyone, and welcome. And guess what? I have a special guest and surprise for you, Dr. Joe himself. Welcome, Dr. Joe. Thank you for finding time and being with us today.
I'm very happy to be with you, Kasia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, what I thought about this time together, I wanted to give our Polish beautiful audience an opportunity to hear you elaborating on certain topics. The audience is young, fresh, and eager, and wants to learn, and they have a lot of knowledge. But I would like for you to just take a stab at certain questions and just give them your personal, touch on answering. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. So the first question is more around, of course, the current topic about the current situation. So, would you give Polish audience more tangible, I would say, explanation how to use your work in times like today, like we're facing, how they can take the knowledge that they have already and start really applying to this situation?
Sure, that's a great question. I think all of the work, Kasia, that we've been doing over the years, the retreats, the measurements scientifically, the long hours of meditation, walking meditations, sitting meditations, lying down meditations, all the work we've done in opening our hearts, getting beyond ourselves, connecting to the field, self-regulating our emotional states is really, really important for these times. And I think that we can face these times in one of two ways. We can face them in a place of victimization, of survival, of fear. And, I think what we fear, we give our power to. And as we know, fear weakens the immune system. And your immune system is your internal defense against foreign agents. So what you fear has power over you. So our research shows that the opposite is also true, that if you decide not to be a victim, to not live in fear, and victims really are just saying that something in the outer world is controlling the way you feel and think. And anything that controls the way you feel and think controls your state of being, you are victim to. And I think people do this unconsciously as a habit. You ask someone, why are you unhappy? It's the traffic, it's the weather, it's the government, it's the whatever. There's always it's my ex. There's always a reason for us to be unhappy. And that's really saying that when things are good in our lives, we're going to feel good. And when things are bad in our lives, we're going to feel bad. And that's a very polarized way of living. Our research shows that instead of being in survival, instead of being responsive to the environment, that you could change your state by just opening your heart. And just 10 to 20 minutes a day will strengthen your immune system by 50%. Now, if you're concerned about something infecting you, and you understand through a better relationship with your body how the body works, and this is a time to really understand that we have such an innate capacity to heal, that the body has strong agents called T cells that are our elite army. And when your heart is opened and you feel love, your body is no longer in survival. It's so objective. It doesn't know the difference between the experience that's creating an emotion of fear or emotion of love, and you by doing it by thought alone. Because the person who's thinking about the worst thing that could happen in their life and embracing it with fear, their body's believing it's in that scenario, in that future already. By the same means, when you feel love, you move out of survival and you move into this creative state. And in creation now, it's a chance for long-term building projects. It's a chance for growth and repair. And so if your T cells are activating B cells, which are activating antibodies and immunoglobulins, then you're creating these proteins that have been signaled by you emotionally for a gene to upregulate so that you have more of an army, more of a responsive army for any foreign agents. And right now, your body is fighting bacteria, is fighting viruses, fighting pathogens, even fighting cancer cells. And so the question is, if you're releasing all of this energy for some threat in your outer environment, and you have no energy in your inner environment for growth and repair, then you are going to be more susceptible to your environment. And so the question is, in times like these, when everybody else is in fear and in anxiety and worry and in the unknown, can we emerge from these times changed in some way? And I would frame this as a small retreat, a small pause from our lives, and breaking out of routine puts us in the unknown. And we could see this as an opportunity to create something greater for ourselves, or we can, respond to everything that is bad news and be part of a consciousness, a collective consciousness that's relying on something outside of them to take care of them. And I think we have all the resources and all the biological machinery to do it ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. And you mentioned, well, you put the word consciousness and being conscious, and that trigger, well, the other question that a lot of people have, well, how do we become conscious of our unconscious thoughts? Like, where do we start?
Yeah. Well, we start with having a decision, making a decision with firm intention that we want to change. Your body is made up of 50 to 70 trillion cells, and all those cells are paying attention to your thoughts and feelings. And most people, when they make up their mind to change, they never come out of the resting state. They just say, yeah, I'm going to change tomorrow. And the signal to the body is the body has an intelligence, and it knows that nothing's going to change. You're going to be the same. But we make up our mind to change, and we say, I've had enough. I don't care how long it takes, time. I don't care how I feel, body. I don't care what's going on in my life or what people think, environment. And you make a decision, and that decision is made with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that causes your body in that moment to respond. That the choice that you make becomes an experience that you will never forget. And the stronger the emotion you feel in making that choice, the more you remember the choice you'll make. And you begin to change your brain and body to move out of your past present reality into a new future present reality. So then that's the first step, because when you feel that emotion, you're giving your body a taste of the future emotionally. It's believing it's there for the first time instead of in fear. So then imagine, once you make up your mind to change, if you know that 90% of your thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before, and the same thoughts lead to the same choices, and the same choices lead to the same behaviors create the same experiences, the same experiences produce the same emotions, and you do that for 20 years on end, your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your gene expression will stay equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is your personality. And your personality is intimately connected to your personal reality. So if your personality creates your personal reality, and you want to change your personal reality, you want to change your life, that means you got to change yourself. And the principle in neuroscience is that nerve cells that fire together wire together. Well, by thinking the same thoughts, doing the same things, feeling the same emotions, and reacting in the same way, and you do that on end, the firing and wiring process begins to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature. And that becomes the person's identity, an automatic response of thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, an unconscious state of mind and body. That's 95% of who we are by the time we're 35. So you sit down in a meditation, and now you want to become somebody else, but the first thing you got to do is stop being the person that you're being. So that means we got this big piece of machinery up here called the frontal lobe. It's 40% of our brain. That's the seat of our conscience. We can pay attention to how we're thinking. We can notice how we act. We can become aware of how we feel. Now, the word meditation means become familiar with. So if you're sitting in your meditation and all of a sudden thoughts like, how long is this going to go? I don't want to do this. I'm never going to change. And those thoughts come up. I want you to understand that you're actually doing the meditation correctly. That's not incorrect. That's actually correct. You're becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts that are always there. Now, if you could become so familiar with those thoughts that you won't go unconscious to them in your waking day, that's a victory. Because once that thought slips past your analytical mind, it'll program your hormones and your genes and your autonomic nervous system into a very specific destiny. So if you say, I want to be a happy person, then you better start looking at how you behave. Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you make excuses? Do you judge other people? Do you get irritated? Well, that's your behavior, and that's what's stopping you between you and that future self. So what if you became so conscious of your unconscious actions and habits that you wouldn't go back to them in your day? Now, that's a victory too. And if you've just lived by the same emotion of guilt or unworthiness for 20 years, and you didn't even know it was guilt, it just feels like you. And all of a sudden, you're sitting in your meditation and your body wants to feel more of those feelings because you're disconnecting from your environment. And you become aware that it just wants to feel that emotion, and you keep settling it back down into the present moment. Every time you do that, that's a victory. You're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. And I guarantee you, if you keep practicing this, you'll become more aware of your old personality self. So conscious and so aware that you'll begin to change, because the moment you're observing those states of mind and body, the moment you're more conscious of your unconscious self, you're not a program any longer. You're the consciousness observing the program. And now you're more aware, you're more conscious. And that takes energy. It takes awareness and energy. And most people would rather turn on the TV or get on their phone or surf the internet or whatever. That's because they don't know that they can make those changes. So the first step to change is awareness. And that's when we begin to objectify our subjective self. And people do it all the time. And every day, if they keep practicing it, they'll catch those thoughts. They'll catch themselves, how they speak. They'll notice their energy dropping, and they'll make a different choice. To me, that's a huge victory.
Oh, it is. And I loved it how, you know that I got, to listen to you a lot of times. I'm blessed with that. And every time you say it, it sounds, it lands in a different way. And the way you said it right now, I had another aha moment. Because when you said it, that in this meditation, when those thoughts are coming, and you actually, they serve the purpose that we can see them, so then we can become more. It's just, wow, it's a big breakthrough for me. So thank you for presenting it.
Yeah. And then it begs the question, what thoughts do you accept, believe, and surrender to without analyzing them? Because those are the ones that are making it all the way to your body.
Yes.
So when people are sitting in the meditation and their body is just wanting to feel the same emotions and think the same way, now you're out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field. This is game time. And most people wait for crisis to make that choice. And why wait for that? I mean, you got time. You're in a retreat in your home. I mean, why not practice becoming someone else and walk out as a different person?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And especially right now, when you always say that we get to know ourselves when we step out of the comfort zone. That's really, that we have opportunity to learn who we are. I think it's a great playground right now to see that other side and practice and observe it, and then actually act on it and do something about it. So
well, again, I mean, what else is there?
What else is there? Exactly. What's other choice? What else to do, right? Beautiful. So now that might be, I don't know, funny question, or there's no, maybe silly or sound silly. People ask, okay, when we start meditating, when we elevate our emotions, at some point, a lot of people experience yawning, but yawning like a, not like a, I'm tired yawning, but like a lion, like it's just with apparently noises, and they're curious, will that ever go away, or what is the sign of it?
Okay, I want to answer this on two levels. One of the main purposes of meditation, besides becoming familiar with the old self and then becoming familiar with the new self, is to lower and slow your brainwaves down and to get beyond your analytical mind. And what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And when we're analyzing and thinking, we're in a brainwave pattern called beta brainwave patterns, right? You and I right now are in low-level beta. We're relaxed, we're talking, we're conscious. All the sensory information's coming into my body. My thinking neocortex has to integrate it. That's normal. If I said to you, Kasia, you have to repeat everything that I said to you back to the audience, your brain would pick up into a mid-range beta. You'd get a little bit more aroused. The light bulb in your brain would turn on a little brighter. But if I released the tiger in your apartment there, you would go into high-level beta. That's emergency. And many people live their whole entire life in this high beta pattern. They're sweeping the environment and trying to predict what's going to happen next, and their body's aroused, and they don't know how to settle it down, and they need something outside of them to do it. Well, as you slow your brain waves down and you close your eyes and you disconnect from your environment, and you're not eating and you're not smelling, you're not tasting, you're not moving around and feeling, there's less sensory information coming to your brain, and opening your awareness to space, according to our research, causes the brain to move into alpha brainwave patterns. And now this is more of the imaginary state. Your inner world is more real than your outer world. You tend to see in pictures and images. You're more creative. And the voice in your head kind of settles down. That's the analytical mind quieting. Now, if you really start relaxing a little bit more, your body moves into a very, very slow brainwave pattern called theta brainwaves. Now, theta is when you're half awake and you're half asleep. This is when your body feels so safe and resting, and you're trying to stay conscious and awake right there. That's when your brain is the most suggestible to information. Now, if you pass that point, you fall into delta and you fall asleep. And we do that when we wake up in the morning. We go from delta to theta to alpha to beta. When we go to bed at night, we go from beta to alpha, theta to delta. So people usually just drop down that scale very quickly, and here they go. So what we're teaching people how to do is learn the terrains of each one of those levels. And sometimes we drop right down into theta, and we're used to laying down when we're doing it. And the body really wants to lay down and go to sleep. So it starts to yawn and get tired. And this is for the novice, for the person who's learning this. We all go through it. I went through it 20 years ago, at least 25 years ago, where I would almost catch myself sleeping sitting up. And that's a practice. I want you to understand you're not doing anything wrong. Your body is yawning because it's requiring more oxygen to keep you awake while you're sitting up. And so you just got to kind of flirt in that area where you just keep checking with your body, keeping it relaxed and staying awake. Now, here are a couple things to do to help that. Number one, sit up. Don't lay down. Number two, don't sit up and put your back against a chair or a couch. Sit up and keep your back off the chair and sit up straight so you can condition your body to stay vertical and erect, and you can work with relaxing it. And we have people, as you know, you've been to enough week-long retreats. Advanced students can sit for hours, and they just like, it's like running a race, a marathon. After you know how to do it, it gets easier. And your body will be conditioned to sit up. But it's the natural thing that happens when the body's changing brain waves and it's wanting to lay down because it's getting tired, and you're used to laying down, and you're keeping it sitting up, and it's drawing more oxygen to kind of keep you awake. Take a big breath, let it all the way in, let it all the way out, and sit up and just get back into it. If your head's nodding, that's a good sign too, because that means you're right between worlds. And that's where we want to keep people. That's that hypnotic state where we can reprogram the subconscious.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining it. Okay, now there was a group of people asking that they seem to have no problem to connect with a heart center and all the centers up, but they struggle with connecting with the first three centers. And the question is it the reason because there's some blockages? Are we doing something wrong? It's just...
Okay. Well, it's very easy to rest our attention in our heart, in our throat, in the back of our brain, in the center of our brain. This area from our torso down, the first three centers, there aren't as many sensory receptors in the second center and the third center as there are in the first, fourth, and so on. So there's an intense amount of sensory receptors in our first center down there. It's very rare that I hear people say that they can't become aware of their perineum and their first center. But out of the infinite places you can place your attention, Of all the things you can put your attention on, I'm asking you to place your attention on that first center. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Now, most people's attention goes on the first center. Then they think, oh, geez, has anybody texted me? Oh, should I cook some lunch? I want a cup of coffee. You know, that's the early mind, right? Mm-hmm. But we keep coming back. And what I want people to understand is if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, by volition, by choice, you are directing energy into that center with your attention. And all I want people to do is to feel it, to notice it, to pay attention to it, to become more aware of it, to experience it, to relax into it, and just keep your attention there and understand that you're telling the autonomic nervous system as you change your brain waves, I want energy in the center. Then you tune into that frequency, it has its own energy, and you receive. The second energy center, slightly below the navel, behind it, is just going to take practice by putting your attention there. And if you keep practicing putting your attention there, you will sooner or later have a point that you can pay attention to, because every time you notice it, every time you feel it, every time you experience it, every time you pay attention to it, every time you become more aware of it, that experience begins to lay new circuits in your brain. So the next day, you have the circuits in place to perceive what you perceived the day before. And if you stretch yourself, you can perceive a little bit more and make more connections. And then the third one is in the pit of your gut, right? I mean, there's an intense number of circuits in this solar plexus area, in our celiac plexus. And again, most of the function has to do with delivering information to organs and tissues in the area. But again, if you rest your attention there, sometimes beginners will take their two fingers and place them into their gut, pit of their gut, so they can feel it, press into below their belly button, just a way for them to keep their attention there. But if you keep practicing it and keep experiencing it, you'll begin to develop a neurological network for you to perceive more at the next time. And it just takes some practice.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I have two more questions for you, Dr. Joe. One, I will start, it kind of feels heavier. So there is a question about, so if we subscribe or will go with the theory that elevated stress and prolonged stress, negative emotions, the emotions of survival, if they're not dealt with, we store them in our body, and in the long term, there is potentially a negative effect in a form of illness, severe illness in adults. So the question is how to explain, for instance, cancer in little children.
Yes, well, there's two ways that you can explain that. So there's a concept in biology called genomic imprinting. And what it says is that the emotions, the thoughts, and the state of being of both parents, moments before conception, cast the first genetic die. So if the parents are living in poverty, living in fear, living in stress, they're perceiving a certain condition in the environment. That information is stored in the haploid cells, in the sperm and the egg of both parents, and it's immediate because they are going to select the same gene expression or a gene expression that allows the child to be able to deal with the environment that the parents are perceiving for better chances of survival. So in ancient cultures that were very mystical, they separated the male and female before the wedding, not because they were going to enhance passion, but because they were deciding what they wanted to bring to the tribe, to the culture. Well, what would it be? A chief? Would it be a wise woman? Would it be a healer? Would it be the medicine man? The leader? So they wanted to bring their best and cleanse themselves of anything else. And when they consummated their love, what was born of love was made of spirit. What was born in survival was of the flesh. And so at times, at critical points, a gene may be signaled that's already signaled that would cause a genetic mutation in the child. But then when the genetic information is exchanged, well, then there are critical periods in utero. For example, nutritionally, if there's malnutrition or there's certain critical phases where there's a hormonal burst from the mother or a strong reaction to something or someone in their life, they're shocked or traumatized, the fetus has direct communication with maternal blood flow. And the mother's thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are literally shaping the child. So a child who's living in survival will have a smaller forebrain, smaller head circumference, larger adrenal glands. Why? Because the child's being molded to face the very environmental conditions that the mother's perceiving. And if the father doesn't create the environment for the mother to be in, he's equally responsible. So that's a critical period. Chemically, emotionally, physically, there could be some type of injury or some way that weakens the organism as well. And it selects and instructs genes. Those are critical periods. So the child then, when it's born, may have some type of genetic mutation as a result of it. Or the child in the first couple of years of life could witness something very horrific, could be exposed to some pathogen, some chemical in the mattress, in the asbestos or the insulation in the ceiling at an early age. And again, the environment is the outer environment now that's beginning to select and instruct the genes of the child. Now you may say, well, that's terrible and it's bad. Yes, and we work with a lot of children in our community. But then if you look at it from the quantum perspective, from a greater level of order, the child negotiates those conditions, looking for a body, not the personality of the child, but the soul of the child, is looking for a certain body, certain parents, certain conditions for its lesson to be learned. And so from the soul, there's no victim. The soul is actually choosing that in the scope of eternity for some type of experience.
Thank you. Well, that's powerful explanation. And I had another question, but you already, because I thought that some of our students may ask and go, well, not even ask, but go to a place of guilt. Oh my God, I created that for my child in some way. But you already answered that. That's a soul choice for lessons to be learned, and that's very powerful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I have a last question, and it will be in the realm of, and you touched already on meditation in one of the previous questions, but there is few questions. So let me ask you just like little questions around meditation. So the audience is asking for general guidance around meditation. How often, where to start, what would be the best meditation to start with, knowing that again with Polish community right now we have some limitations because only English version, but nevertheless let's just give them the guidelines. And then also there is that question very well, is there a danger if we connect to that energy? And some people start experiencing energy moving, and then some people then report that, oh my God, and then I felt like I lost consciousness, and then I I found myself on the floor. So if you could give some guidance around that. We know, we've seen it, it's normal for us.
Yes, couple things. I don't want this to become something mechanical. That's always been a concern of mine. When you create a technique, some people get so focused, they become technicians, and they lose that kind of creative, intuitive part of themselves. You change your brain waves all the time. In fact, if you're talking to somebody, or you're on the phone in the car or whatever, you're talking to the car and you're driving, and then all of a sudden you kind of get on the freeway and you start driving and you start going into a trance. And while you're driving, you're not aware of your body. You don't even see the road out in front of you. You're not thinking about time. Well, where were you? Your inner world was more real than your outer world, and you switch from beta to alpha. And you do that naturally. The brain kind of freezes and slows down and pauses to learn, to think, to contemplate. to see in pictures and images. So when we teach the meditation, I think it's important for people to go in steps that they can accept. Even if they've meditated for 40 years, we've seen this thousands of times. People come, they say, I'm an experienced meditator. They don't prepare themselves for our events, and it's completely different for them because it's based not in any traditional meditation, any culture, any religion. It's based on science. So I like people to win when they do it. So, like, as an example, in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, the first part is learning how to change your brainwaves, just opening your focus and practicing getting familiar with that type of induction to get beyond the analytical mind. Now, if you practice just doing that for 20 minutes a day, and that was your focus, and you noticed an improvement in doing it, then you're ready to go to the next step. And so then the next step may be to become conscious of my unconscious thoughts, aware of my automatic behaviors and the emotions that I live by, and decide, okay, today, what's the greatest expression of myself I could be? Let me just review the thoughts that I fall prey to. I want to know them. I want to just be aware of how I speak, how I stand, how I walk, how I breathe, what I can do and not do. Let me look at my weaknesses. I get frustrated, I get angry, I get impatient, I get judgmental. Just remind yourself who you no longer want to be in that kind of relaxed state. Then you ask the question, who do I want to be? Which is a really important question. What thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? Well, if you put your attention and intention behind them, nerve cells that fire together wire together. What you're doing now is you're installing circuitry in your brain by repetition. And if you keep repeating it and staying present and focused, the hardware is going to become software. That means you're going to automatically think in a new way. It's going to be the new voice in your head that says you can do it. You're unlimited. Whatever you want, you can program whatever you want in there. Then you'd say, who do I want to be when I open my eyes? Okay, well, what would be a greater expression of myself? And you start rehearsing in your mind how you're going to be with your children, with your parents, with your lover, with your co-workers, how you're going to be moment to moment. And you start rehearsing in your mind who you're going to be when you open your eyes. The act of mental rehearsal begins to install more circuitry in your brain. In fact, if you're truly present, your brain will not know the difference between a real life event and what you're imagining. Now you're changing your brain and priming it by installing the circuitry. And if you keep doing it every day, it's going to become a software program and you're going to start acting like a happy person. No magic there. The brain's no longer living in the past. You primed it to the future. Now, here's the hardest part about meditation. Can you teach your body emotionally what the future will feel like before it's happened? That means you can't wait for your healing to feel gratitude and wholeness. You can't wait for your wealth to feel abundance. You're waiting for something outside as a victim to change this emptiness or separation or lack you feel inside of you. When you start feeling that emotion, what you're doing is you're becoming familiar with a new type of chemistry. And by opening your heart and practicing it each day, it will get easier for you. So to become familiar with by firing and wiring new circuits, and to become familiar with by emotionally changing your chemistry, if you keep practicing that every single day, you're going to start to think differently. You're going to start to act differently, and you're going to start to feel differently. And how you think and how you act and how you feel is your personality. And now you're a new personality, and get ready because you're going to start seeing those synchronicities and opportunities in your life as a result of you being a new personality. And it will be a surprise. It'll be unexpected because that's the unknown. So I want people to understand that we already know how to do this. If you took the time out of your day, instead of rushing to your cell phone and checking the news and your WhatsApp and your Facebook and your Instagram, instead of plugging into the known, if you just paused for a moment, you can do all of that later, but do it as somebody else, not the same person. It's simple enough for people to catch themselves. Like I work on catching myself during the day as many times as I can. And I ask myself, who am I right now? How am I being? Am I present? Am I in my heart? Am I focused? Am I alert? Am I conscious? I want to know, because at the end of the day, I'm going to ask myself a question: how did I do? And where did I fall? Where did I lose it? Because I want to be able to know what was the thought or what was the condition in my life that caused me to fall from grace. And I am going to think about, before I go to bed at night, a better way to do it. And if I have a better way to do it, I'm going to research someone certainly must have had similar situation that I had, that overcame it, and I want to know what they did, and then I'm going to find a more enlightened or a more conscious way of behaving the next day, and I'm going to rehearse that into the formula. So in time, the person who's prudent, the person who is sincere, the person that is willing will literally evolve into a new personality. And many times the disease or the health condition we're facing disappears because they're not the same person. They're someone else. And the disease exists in the old person, and they didn't have to visualize anything. They just had to become. So we overcome every day a little bit more. We overcome a little bit more every day until we become that person. And that's when you love yourself for who you are. And that's what I want for everybody.
Thank you. And just one word of advice or precaution when people are concerned when they feel the energy moving through their body, experiencing the waves. So just give them some word on that.
Well, I can tell you from my own personal journey that whenever there's a change in awareness, whenever there's a change in consciousness, there'll always be a change in energy. And our body is technologically so advanced. And when energy starts moving through our nervous system, a lot of times you are connecting to a resource called the quantum field, the unified field. And it's a big energy. And we should never be afraid of it. It's a phenomenon. It's something that's the side effect of a change in awareness. And I've experienced it all of it. And I never get caught on the phenomena. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is evolving my experience. And if you just keep going and not be afraid of it and surrender to it. I've never been injured. I have had all kinds of crazy things go on. I want you to know that it will continue to change and continue to evolve into something else if you continuously stretch yourself. So information that's stored in the body as energy sometimes is stored in our connective tissue. Connective tissue is liquid, crystalline structures, and there could be trauma, injury, emotional trauma also stored in that area. And when energy moves through it and it's big, it causes the body to release or to convulse a little bit or to shake. That's good. That's information that's trying to make its way through or make its way out. There's two ways we saw in a brain scan to deal with this. Person's in that elegant state, their brain waves have slowed down, they're connected, and here comes this crazy energy, and it's an unknown. The moment they feel that unknown energy, they go into contraction, they go back into high beta, and the event's over. Boom, they disconnect from the field. They're back in those stress hormones. And I've done it plenty of times, and then I always go, dang, God, I want it again. So then you got to get back into that surrendered state. And if you do the opposite, we've seen this, people that just let go. And like they're just going to relax into it and enjoy it. They just open up. It always turns into something really profound, whether it's ecstasy or bliss or freedom or a transcendental moment. And it's just kind of, again, giving ourselves permission in not trying to recreate it the same exact way every time. Just learning the process of how to get there. And people say, I want the unknown. I've seen this thousands and thousands of times until they get it. And then when they get it, they say, I didn't expect it to be like that. And I say to them, well, that's the unknown. What do you want it? You want it the way you expect? It's never going to be that way. The unknown is something that you haven't experienced. So when it happens, you've worked so hard to get there, just open up and let it move through you and don't judge it. And if you have an experience, you get up, you brush yourself off, you go at it again. That's the fun part about it.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing with us the answers to the questions. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And till the next time. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to being in Poland.
Soon, just few more months, and we'll have you there. Thank you.
You're welcome.